All right, here we go. Episode 5, staycurious.org podcast. I'm your host, man on the mic. My name is Heike, and here we are. We just wrapped up episode 4 with a very dear friend of mine, longtime friend, Mr. Douglas Wickert. It was a great podcast. We talked about being a benefit corporation versus a B Corp certified business compared to nonprofits. I think we hit most of the core topics there. Haven't gotten any feedback from any of y'all because we just wrapped that fucker up 5 minutes ago, and we're starting episode 5 right now. And Mr. Doug Wickert is still in front of me. Again, longtime friend, big time inspiration man, and autodidact, one of my famous autodidacts, self-directed learner. Mr. Douglas Wickert, welcome back.
I'm happy to be here, locked and loaded, ready to roll.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
get this thing going.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, a couple quick questions before we dive into our educational history and schooling experiences from K-12 college to current. What'd you think about sitting here chatting with this bald-headed maniac?
Well, at first I was a little bit worried, but then once we got rolling, you were carrying most of the conversation, so that made it a lot more enjoyable than me talking.
There's a lot of things moving, work in progress here. But have you done podcasting before? Were you a big fan of podcasts, and do you listen to any current podcasts now?
Yeah, I listen to some podcasts. This is obviously the first one I've done, but I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, and I listen to some other financial podcasts as well, and also ones about gardening.
Yeah, he's JRE, one of the goats, and what if you don't mind, kind of elaborating on the financial side of things, and then we'll dive in deep to the gardening ones. The financial podcasts that you listen to, what the names of them? I don't know, or do you just
whatever comes up on YouTube? Basically, it's vlog formats.
Okay. Okay. So that's a great question. Also, so the people listening right now. This is only the 5th episode that we've done at staycurious.org. It is audio only, and for the imminent future, it will be audio only. There's a couple of factors going on in there, but one of the main ones is for this project, for this brand, if you will, is kind of hone your listening skills. We understand that there's a video format out there, and people like that, but right now, this home little setup here, not much to see. Got a nice view of Cleveland. We'll send some pictures, but let me ask you this: when you are listening to podcasts, whether it's Joe or the any of them, do you prefer video or do you like the audio, or does it matter?
Well, in terms of listening to a conversation between people, I don't necessarily need the video there. A lot of the things I like to learn about are hands-on. If I want to learn how to repair a refrigerator, if I want to learn how to do things in my nursery that maybe I don't know how to do, I prefer to have a visual aid there.
Okay. Again, the theme of this podcast, just two dudes having curious conversations, longtime friend, and big famous mind, big brain on this boy. But yeah, tell me about this. I know you're big in the farming, into the green thumbs, and we'll get into our K-12 education sector stuff later. But let's dive into that deep. Tell me about it. What are you using to learn? I know you have a little bit of a history with the green thumb, but share.
Well, as you know, I wasn't planning on becoming a farmer or a nurseryman or anything like that when we were growing up. I was basically a straight shot towards business my whole life, and that's what I went to school for finance. I guess it resulted mainly of from the 2007-2008 financial crisis, where breakdowns in finance were disrupting supply lines all across the world, and people were having trouble getting food. So I kind of looked at that and decided there would probably be more of that in the future. So I decided to build a plan of how I was going to combat that in case there was supply disruptions in the future by, say, like a pandemic or things of that nature that might cause problems in the future. So I started basically just gardening with 2 raised beds that I made that were 4 foot by 8 foot, and put them out there, and I ordered in some soil, and I had a bulldozer and filled them up and grew a couple different crops. And from there, I wanted to learn how to make a bunch of more crops, and I went on to YouTube, and that was one resource that I used quite a bit, determining how to plant things. And luckily, there's a ton of resources out there. I also use Michigan State University. It has a great website out there that you can learn a lot about horticultural projects, and University of Maine is really good for things like raspberries and cherries. Clemson University, I learned a lot about hybridizing roses from them. Like I said, there's just a ton of information out there that things that I wanted to learn.
That's awesome, man. So my as I'm listening to you and kind of seeing your kind of like animation getting like lit up about this, I got multiple questions. So I'll try to keep them simple. But what was your first crop or kind of plant, whatever you did, put in the ground to kind of grow? What was it, and how did it turn out? Did it fail, or what were your lessons learned, if you will?
Well, the first thing I ever put into the ground was I bought some tomato starts and some lettuce starts from Walmart. They sell them every spring up here in this area, and they didn't do too well. That's when I kind of decided to learn a little bit more. Basically, I thought it was pretty easy. You just put them in there, and they don't do anything, and they grow. Just water them a couple times if it gets dry. But anyone who does gardens knows, that's not the case. But I did build a box that I let my dad take over. And basically, he just went to the grocery store and bought a bunch of potatoes. And he sliced them in half. And he probably threw, I don't know how many, 40 of them in a 32 square foot box. And this thing was just towering over anything that I put in. I had mine neatly spaced according to what the seed packets said to do. Everything was labeled correctly, and my stuff, it did all right the first year, but it didn't do nearly what he did. So I learned a lot about what nature thinks of proper spacing and putting things in lines. It might be easier to get the stuff once it comes out, but it seems to like chaos a lot more.
That seems to be what nature prefers also, I think, from what I've learned.
Absolutely. And I guess it makes sense, because if you're, say, a tree that makes seeds or a bush that makes seeds, it just goes as far as the wind carries it. So if it's, say, a rose and it's a rose hip, it doesn't land too far from where the bush already is, and it's going to be a collection of seeds really close to each other. So I think nature prefers to grow close to each other, and that's kind of how I adjusted my spacing over the last 10 years to be more condensed. Now, the issue with that is you have to have ground that is fertilized and has all the proper nutrients in it. So if you plant more densely, then you have a problem with replacing all the nutrients.
Interesting. I'm not going to fucking front. I do not know a lot about the landscape and the green thumb side of things. My interests are kind of growing, if you will, with the cannabis movement kind of making way. But in terms of sustainability and kind of being able to feed myself, I'm going to be effed if we ever come into that situation. So make sure I know where you live. I do know where you live. But go back to your dad. I mean, this sounds like a great visual, a great experience. You know, you very educated, very systematic, organized, and your dad is just like chopping potatoes that happen, throw them in the ground, and having this like success. Number one, I picture this is where I think The Martian got their plot dialogue from Matt Damon. So is that true? Was your dad a writer for The Martian?
He certainly could have been.
I love potatoes. But what are you growing now? Is it just food and flower, or and how do you choose what you grow, and do you have a capacity from just being one guy with a lovely partner? How do you select what do you want to grow?
Well, typically I try to select plants that I can harvest at different times, because I work a full-time job and this is just a side gig. So I have to do things that are ready to be picked at different times. So what I found is my best combination is I have about 180 different rose bushes which in the future I'm going to be hybridizing and creating new roses. And I also take cuttings from the roses and create new roses from them, and that's what I'm going to be selling in the nursery.
Oh, so the food is sustainable for you, but the flowers and the nursery stuff is like for business.
Correct.
Oh, so is that kind of like your kind of long-term kind of passion project, maybe entrepreneurial adventure then?
Correct. It keeps me creative on the weekends, gives me something to do, and then it also something for retirement after I'm done working in the Fortune 500 world.
Very good. So it sounds like you got your kind of like bonsai tree Mr. Miyagi thing going on, but you're doing roses.
Yeah, I'm kind of working on my cream kick right now. We'll see how that comes along. But on the food side, probably the only crop that I sell is garlic. And It works out well because garlic kind of is ready to be picked around July 4th, which I don't have to do much with the rose bushes around that time. And they get planted in late October, early November, which I don't have very much that I need to do with the roses during that time. So it works out perfectly. So those are kind of the two that I go with most heavily. But I also grow different things like peas and lettuce and green beans. And I grew a lot of tomatoes. Last year we grew 35 different tomato varieties.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, most people don't even know there's that many different ones out there. But I would encourage you, if you like tomatoes, branch out and go to a farmer's market, because a tomato from a farmer's market is going to taste completely different than the bland stuff you get in a grocery store. Those are genetically hybridized to do well in storage. They're not really designed for flavor. Some of them might have decent flavor, like if you see a San Marzano or Aroma package in there. But just the normal ones, they have really thick skins and they're kind of mealy. So I would encourage you to check out a farmer's market.
I personally have only been to farmers market. When I buy, as a single dude, my grocery list and grocery shopping is pretty simple. Basically, I eat like an 8-year-old unsupervised child, but I eat organic for the most part. But your comment about the tomato and seeing the farmers market stuff is really interesting, because again, being in San Diego, having the weather, I saw the most beautiful produce and vegetables out there. And I know Ohio and other cities and states and other parts of the country have these markets, and it is a beautiful experience to see. On a kind of a side question about the tomatoes, because like I know, with everybody being quarantined, people are looking for passion projects, looking for something to cure their boredom, looking to something to do, looking for something after retirement. So, we'll talk about the resources that are out there that you used. But what's going on? I see these vertical integration tomato plants that you just basically hang. Have you ever experienced those? I know that you can't do that on a scale, but like how does that work? That's a hydroponic thing or what?
Well, there are hydroponic ones. There's also people that grow the tomatoes upside down, like in a container.
That's what it was, an upside down tomato plant.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. It's just you're taking advantage of space. You can put things up in the air so you can walk under them, but then you have the tomato plants coming down, and it just makes it easier to pick, and it's more difficult for things like squirrels to ruin your crop.
Yeah, I hear Ohio has a lot of those.
Indeed, big fat ones. They'll destroy anything in the area. But you can also make use of vertical space going straight upward. Like I switched all mine to a single trellis. Basically, I put in T-posts into the ground, and I put in an 1.25 inch PVC piping bar on the top that are like 6 foot in the air, and I hang a string underneath it, and then I can trellis up the tomato plants that way. So I can, in a 32 square foot box, I can put 16 or 17 plants in one box, so I get a bunch of different variety. Whereas if you just use tomato cages or something, you could only fit 6 or 8 plants in there.
Interesting. If you had the time, obviously you got bills to pay like we all do. But if you had time, you weren't working your Fortune 500 gig and kind of doing the Monday through Friday grind, would you dive in head first to this? Would this be your backup plan? If you woke up and someone said, hey, you cannot go to your job, you got to create something new, how would you reinvent yourself?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the direction I would go. Since I've invested all this time and getting the knowledge, like say my quarantine project this year was teaching myself how to graft apple trees, learning about all the different rootstocks, and then securing scions to be able to create new apple trees.
Interesting. So, what would be if again time aside? Well, I mean, we talked earlier offline about 2020 being a complete bizarre alternate universe. So, I mean, we're here. You've been blessed, been humbled. Like you got the fortunate industry that you work for. But let me ask you this: you have the time. The resources, time and money, are the two ultimate resources that we're talking about here. What would you want to grow? Like tomorrow morning, you're flush. You got your house. You're going to be okay. What do you grow?
Well, I enjoy a wide variety of things. Variety is the spice of life, after all. My number one go-to is roses. I have grandparents that are famous in the area for growing roses. They used to travel around the country as rose judges.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that. 20 plus years. What is the name? Tell me more. I did not know this.
Yeah, my grandparents were part of the Cleveland Rose Society, and they also founded the Northeastern Ohio Rose Society, which is located in the hometown of Madison. And they used to have like 200 or 300 different rose varieties on their landscape. And they used to travel around the country to rose shows, showing off their roses, and they were also approved ARS, American Rose Society judges, and they travel around the country viewing other people's roses and judging them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I never knew that. I knew you the rose aspect was in your life, but dude, that is first time hearing that.
And then, as you know, my other grandparents grew grapes probably for 40 plus years, so it's definitely in my blood.
Interesting.
And to follow up on your earlier question, I guess some of the other things I would grow, which I already have, are spirea, hydrangea. I like the bright flowers and the scent. Apple trees. See what else I have here. I'd have raspberries, blueberries, honeyberries.
And is this all something that you do by yourself?
Yeah, this is definitely all stuff that I do by myself. Again, I just do it on the weekends or when I come home from work.
Okay. I gotta ask. Is that Pac-Man?
That's a good question. I think it's just a random Samsung thing.
Awesome. Follow-up question. So, we'll cannabis. Just from my own carnal knowledge, I'm pro cannabis. I'm here for the next wave of it. Cash crop, all this agricultural stuff. It could be used. Coming from California, being in Colorado, there are successful models here, but industrial hemp, cannabis. What do you know anything about growing it? Do you know anything about experience growing it? If it became illegal federally, the government is actually getting ready to vote on the MORE Act, which they're going to federally decriminalize it. And I don't know if that includes industrial hemp or not. But the government side of government component aside, would you grow it outside of the government side of things?
Well, I likely wouldn't grow it because I don't have the knowledge of the product. If I was able to easily find information on it, and if my land was suitable, I might take a look at it. From my knowledge of it, it seems like it's something that's less destructive to the environment as, say, a cotton crop or some of the other fibers that we use in clothing or rope or things like that. So obviously I'd be in favor of it, and I'm in favor of anything that expands freedoms for citizens.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I actually don't know. I got one or two friends that are in the culture from the cannabis side, but I don't know in terms of the industrial hemp. But everything that I do know of the industrial hemp, it is one of those cash crops that could be used and planted here. A lot of people could do it. It's a very versatile product. But again, don't know anything about the I'm not informed about growing it, but my curiosity is piqued. And so that goes into my next question. You mentioned these resources that you use to educate yourself. With Michigan and what was it, Purdue or
Michigan State, University of Maine have good ones. Clemson.
Now, are these all free online kind of like resources, and how do they operate? Do you have to join their little club, or tell me how the interface works?
No, basically you just can go on any internet search and type in what you want to know. University of Maine has a really good site with information on things like raspberries, which I put in raspberry plots around the area. So if I just type in University of Maine raspberries, an entire site will come up. It'll be free. You don't have to join anything or click on anything special. And they also have YouTube videos that show you how to do the things. And they have stuff on like irrigation in there that's really nice.
Interesting. So that's a great segue. You know, you got your little passion project. Kind of passions, if you will, with the green thumb here. But let's kind of touch base on that. You know, like that stuff wasn't taught in school per se. You know, when you and I were we graduated in 1997 to date ourselves. We're a bunch of 40-plus-year-old, human meat sacks here, but we made it. We're healthy-ish. And outside of that, though, I mean, K-12 compulsory schooling didn't do that. Let's chat about that. I mean, how you have a history of it, you have family that's involved, but outside of your higher education with the finance world and kind of like the schooling, if you will, this education and this knowledge that you have with the green side, what are you like? What inspired you? What do you think the problem was or the challenge was about learning about that stuff back in when we were in high school versus compared to now? I mean, I know that's an open-ended question, but we're not trying to kind of solve the world. There is no silver bullet for education here.
Yeah, I would say to address the last part of your question, I kind of view K through 12's role is to teach people how to learn, rather than right now we kind of have people sitting in classrooms for 50 minutes, a bell rings, they go out in the hall for 3 minutes, and then they walk to another classroom where a bell rings and tells them they start again. And they sit there and listen to somebody lecture them for a while. I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to learn. I feel being in the K through 12 system, the ways I learned the best were through sports, traveling around, meeting different people. Through football and wrestling and baseball, we got to travel all around Northeast Ohio, see different things. Wrestling, we actually took a trip to Florida our sophomore and senior years. I probably learned more than that than anything else that senior year.
You didn't learn more than Bill Mayer, though. That's for damn sure.
No one could have learned more than him. He's the footsie champ. But but yeah, I think those are the kind of experiences we should be looking to give kids nowadays.
And it's tough though, because I mean, the education world is totally different from you and I went. It's just different. It is becoming more of a process, kind of like a system, if you will, and hence schooling versus education. And I talked multiple times about this, about schooling versus education, and the current landscape. I think our generation, we're Gen X. We're the last generation to kind of have a childhood without the technology. And I love the technology. I'm a Graham fiend. That is my kind of like time killer. But I'm seeing all of this, from starting this company, starting this brand, trying to use this tool as a resource to kind of, I'm not going to come create content here like original, but I want to be able to aggregate it, like find someone, build a community of, hey, you like roses? Talk to me, like go directly. And I think that's a part of the education world that's interesting, because it is ripe for disruption, and unfortunately, kids in school are like overwhelmed. They are stuck in this system. Do you know what I mean? And we can go into leadership, we can go into home environment, community versus network, but with what you are viewing observationally, what's your take on this? I mean, do you think it's going to change with this pandemic, being at home and people being behind screens more and having the opportunity to self-direct learn?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it'll change until we change what our goals are as a society. A lot of it's going to start at home, and having both parents at home is a big factor. I think you could see from most of our friends or people growing up that it's beneficial to have both a dad and a mom in the household.
Yeah, it's tough though with a lot of the kind of I don't even know what the right term is. inequality, the cost, the different poverty-based areas. I mean, unfortunately, the reality is, yeah, we were very fortunate. But when you look at like the school systems, I have a very dear friend of mine that's down in Charlotte. She's teaching at a kind of a poverty-based school, but she's legitimately the Michelle Pfeiffer of education. And I've met a lot of teachers in San Diego that feel the same way. It's like, they express this idea, this idealistic world. It's like, you got to have both parents there. You got to have, the resources, and, that's great in a real world or a fantasy world. But the reality we are having, I mean, most parents are divorced. There's a lot of kind of like split families the kids are being bounced in between families and mom and dads, or absentee moms, or no dads, or whatever the circumstances. And unfortunately, where I'm inspired with this brand and kind of build this community is to kind of be that missing inspiration, find people that with like-minded minds, or people that challenge you, support you, and again, community, a community of the curious, if you will. There's a difference though between community and networking, and again, that's another one. But what else do you see?
Well, that was going to lead me into my next point, was going to be, if you have households that don't have that dynamic, somebody needs to step in and act as, let's say, a big brother, big sister, which would be a great program. If you meet people who are in unfortunate circumstances, maybe share your passion with them. Sharing that passion might spark some kind of interest or curiosity in this case.
Yeah.
To look at maybe what you're doing. Maybe they want to emulate what you're doing.
Yeah, that again, that's the long-term vision with this is to do that. Like, I don't have the technical knowledge or the brain power to kind of build this community outright. I am trying to dive into this is the education world, but I want to take the stigma out of schooling. I want to kind of like reduce schooling, get it out of the way. It's an education. I mean, I look at education as a whirlpool. It has a definitive form. It has a very definitive form. When you and I talk about a whirlpool, it is, what I'm talking about, but it's constantly in motion. And that water is never in the same place at the same time. It's not just stagnant, it's in motion. And I think that's what your education is. And I think that's what is really difficult for, kids, is because they're at such an impressionable age. They got a lot of emotional stuff going on, stuff at the home, stuff at school. Some kids, are the breadwinner. They're taking care of mom or taking care of dad or the siblings, doing, extra jobs or whatever. And, and that's another topic, but, that's something in terms of education where I firmly believe in, is that, like you said, passionate, supportive, leadership. These are terms that we throw around loosely, but I think people have lost, really what those terms mean to them. It's like, I was reading this article earlier about leadership in schools, and like this principal was talking about how he used to be, every day morning watching kids come in, and like he had this visual representation of what a leader was. He made sure he had a pressed shirt on, a collar, a tie, and clean cut hair, and welcoming the kids, and that was important. To see that type of leadership, that visual leadership. But now here we are, everyone's looking at screens, whether it's your phone or your laptop or YouTube or your TV. How do you how do you instill leadership virtually? I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms,
Well, I think rather than having a visual representation of it, I think the kids, just like if you're playing sports, you need to have a coach that cares. And even if you're learning virtually, you can still have people in your life that care. And I think that is the main thing that helps kids out, keeps them focused, makes them want to learn, makes them want to do well. It's being part of a community because you're going to let somebody down if you screw up.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet here for the education challenges that we have. Education inequality is a real thing. There is no one-time fix-all thing. No brand, no government, no politician is going to work at it or solve it. You turned me on to John Taylor Gatto a while ago. It starts at home. Unfortunately, it starts at home, and I don't mean what the home that you sleep in or where you rest your head. And this isn't to focus on K through 12. I mean, I know a lot of people that have college educations, masterettes, JDs, and emotionally they're just not there. So I mean, this is part of the education. We're not trying to collect certs here. And the whole point, what I'm trying to make with this moment, I guess, is, it's building that community of people to talk to. Like, you and I can sit down, have differences of opinion. You use XYZ resources, I use ABC resources, but we can have an understanding, and we support that. It's like, you're a green thumb, you got roses. That's awesome. I would love to come out and see these roses. I don't know if you have an online forum or kind of a visual representation of it, but that's a way to gain inspiration. I dive into Alan Watts, the philosophers, the dialectic thinkers, John Taylor Gatto's, but my curiosity isn't limited to establishing my confirmation bias of whatever I think of a topic. I want to see both sides, and I think that is a perspective that is not being taught. And I don't know if that makes sense, but nothing I do really makes sense anymore. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems society is being herded into teams where if you're on one team, you can't associate with the other team. Everything's about some kind of win, but it equals out to a loss for society as far as I'm concerned if you're not figuring out what their viewpoint is or how they're looking at problems.
Oh, that's great, because there's this kind of society building momentum idea of, as soon as you draw a line in the sand, like, they're the enemy. And I giggle at that, because okay, yes, sure, if you're going to talk about politics and religion and certain taboo topics or whatever, like, yes, I understand, I can respect them, their kind of not sincerity, what the fuck am I looking for here, their closeness, what it means, personal, okay. But what I don't understand is, like, not everything has to be like enemy driven. Like, I have a book over here, it's called Finite versus Infinite Games, and it talks about there's typically two types of games. There's people that play to play, which is an infinite player or an infinite game, or there's people to play to win. And the people that play to win, I'm paraphrasing this, they have to agree to rules. They have to agree to anything. There's a determined winner, and that determined winner is based off of the loser. They're like, yeah, we played in like at football. There's 4 quarters, 15 minutes long. The score is done. At the end of 15 minutes or at the end of 4 quarters, yep, we didn't score enough points. We lose, and they leave. That's a finite game. And with education, though, education isn't a finite thing. You can't win at education.
Yeah, I think the issue is we're trying to create a problem that fits, or a solution that fits every single kid, when every kid doesn't have the same brain structure. Like, growing up, I didn't realize how much different my brain is than, say, anyone else.
Like mine?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. My brain is like completely 100% rational, where it's very low on empathy. Whereas I talk to somebody like you have, you're good with the arts. You can understand people. You're a lot more empathetic than I am. So I think just having a one-stop solution for everybody, which is government education, really doesn't help anybody. But again, we have to have an educated workforce to be able to do whatever in the future. So it's a tough conundrum.
It is. Again, I kind of get, like, I could sit here and, we're coming up on a few minutes to kind of hopefully kind of make this a clean one. But that is something that I do think about a lot, because, I look at, the current education system, from an observer. I don't have children in the system. I don't have any children that I know of. And so it's an interesting, topic for me to review, to learn about, but kind of be an outsider, but be involved in, like, I hope, our dear friend Bill, he's an educator. He's a professional. I would love to have him on, talk about it in depth, talk about our shenanigans, but get his perspective on, education and whatnot. But what's interesting with the current situation, I was talking to my brother last night, dude, he has a 6-year-old little dude, Carter. Carter, if you're listening, or if you're going to listen, in the upcoming future, I love you, buddy. But he's my dude. I'm cool Uncle Boo. He is one of my favorite little men, but like I don't see him. But my brother's telling me yesterday, dude, he is on Zoom meetings 5 hours a day for kindergarten. He's a kindergartner on Zoom meetings. And so that's the current education system. And I mean, is my question, and I hopefully it doesn't piss people off, but it's like, what are these other parents thinking about this? Are they learning? Is this what's going on here? What is their experiences? It's insane. This is the current landscape.
Yeah, from what I remember about kindergarten, it was mostly about socializing with other kids and taking naps, kind of making sure you play nice with others before you go further on and start learning arithmetic and writing and all that good stuff. Basically, you should be learning the letter people and having fun and singing. So I'm sure right now our kindergarten teachers are having a real rough time out there.
Yeah, again, the handful of teachers that I've met and kind of like, this is a part of the social media aspect of things and the connection, if you will. Like, I've had the fortunate experience of talking to a lot of teachers I've never personally met, but with this brand, this idea, it's kind of moving in the right direction, I feel. But again, like you said, there isn't a silver bullet for education, and I think this is the part where it doesn't matter what left or right, Republican, Democrat. It doesn't matter what government is involved. Throwing more money at the education system is not going to fucking solve the problem. I do believe passionately that the challenge is with the student. You cannot throw money at a student and be like, here. You can't give them an iPad and say, here's all these resources, go get it. If they're not inspired, if they don't have the desire, and they don't have a connection with either mentorship, leadership, or a source of motivating them to learn, whether it's about hip-hop, whether it's about the arts, philosophy, gardening, if they don't have that type of inspiration like internally, it's going to be a challenge. And I think this is where this project is dear to me, and I do want to inspire that. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. You got to pick and choose it. I read a quote. I don't know if it's an Instagram quote or who the fuck said it, but you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. And I feel that way with education. I mean, you can learn anything you want, but you're not gonna. No one's a know-it-all.
Yeah, exactly. Start with yourself is definitely a great message. Just you doing things to move your life forward, especially if you're somebody who has dealt with maybe you've made mistakes in the past. You moving forward is inspiring to other people. It's important for other people to see an example of somebody who can get knocked down, get back up again. And especially our entire country loves somebody that has taken a couple shots and getting back up again. That's the kind of success stories we love. Look at Rocky.
Yeah, Rocky. Yeah, the new version is Creed. Did you see Creed?
I did.
What'd you think?
I love all those movies, so they're all great.
Who'd win in a fight, Sylvester or Arnold?
I'd probably take. I'd have to take Arnold because he has a longer reach. Sylvester's kind of a smaller guy.
He's scrappy though.
He is scrappy,
and he can get his ass whooped and get it back up.
Yeah, but did you see the arm wrestling in Predator between Arnold and Carl Weathers?
I did not. I just remember the backwards cap, and that was it.
Get to the chopper.
So, again, the education thing, I guess if you were to look back at your high school career, I mean, versus college, what do you think? I mean, was it worth it? I mean, would you change anything? If you could go back and tell your future self anything about the tools and resources that you had then compared to now, would you change anything? What would you tell yourself?
I'm not somebody that likes to think about changing things. Every decision I've made in my life brought me to the point that I am now. So if I'd have gone about changing things, maybe I would have a different life now. I kind of enjoy who I am and what I do. So
you got a good life, my friend.
I do indeed. I'm blessed.
Yes, yeah. Like I said, 20 years plus, and it's great to see you here and smiling and successful and learning, dude. That's the biggest thing that I could again tell you, man. Is the autodactism aspect of you. I don't know where you got it from. We bust balls about our high school and college classes, but your ability to kind of be this kind of subject matter expert on something that you found on yourself is inspiring. And for those that are listening, self-directed learning, self-learner, life learner, yes, that's the direction what we're going. But for those that do not know, autodactism is kind of like you're self-learning, but you're kind of diving deep, if you will. It's kind of like picking a subject matter and kind of just jumping in, buying a textbook. And to use a fitness analogy, I mean, everyone likes to eat healthy, kind of get motivated, go walk or whatever. But the difference between autodactism and someone that's a life learner has your general curiosity. Autodactism is picking a subject and diving deep, kind of like a fitness guy is like becoming a professional bodybuilder. You get into the nutrients aspect of things, the training regimen, how your body heals. You become a subject matter expert on your own without having to pay a premium for that information and that knowledge. And I think that's important now because you mentioned the resources with your green thumb and the farming and whatnot, and the roses and whatnot. And there are a ton of information and resources. I will say this from personal experience: it's overwhelming of the amount of information out there.
There's information on everything under the sun out there, but just pick something you want to learn about. You can go put on Google or DuckDuckGo and pick any subject you want. The internet doesn't have to be cat pictures and stalking your old ex-girlfriends.
I know, but I mean, it's so much fun. It's so much fun.
It is indeed. I guess if you like a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, train wrecks. That's the next episode. That's my life is a train wreck, I guess. But anyways, before we go, bud, again, second episode with you. I hope to have many more here. You got any kind of last minute tidbits about education? I know we're getting better at it. Practice makes perfect. But what do you think so far? Podcasting, being here, education. You got any episodes that we should do next?
Well, I like your episode idea with Bill, and I would talk to him about how he connects with kids and what he's doing to show kids he cares when he's in school. I know following him on Facebook, he's doing a lot of extra work that maybe people didn't do when we were in school. And I like to follow him and see how well he's doing. He's very successful.
He is. He is a very successful man. He's hopefully he'll get on here and we'll keep him contained. No caffeine. Guy's a loose cannon. After you give him a 5-hour energy, he's like Roadrunner. Beep beep. He's crazy. But in terms of his success in the education world, yeah. I mean, I remember seeing him out in. When I was out in San Diego, he was in Arizona or somewhere for a little bit. He stopped by. We went golfing. But the dude I mean, I don't even know if he sleeps. I don't think he does.
Yeah, he's nonstop ball of energy.
Like, nonstop, dude. Like, I get, like, I mean, between supporting his family, supporting the students, the guy's just nonstop.
I get tired just watching his photos of all the different places he goes and then visiting all his kids' sporting events and doing all the family things, plus being involved in all the school functions. He's at like every football game or wrestling matches.
I know. I saw him at a game in Madison one time on Facebook. He was like, he was like posting pictures from Madison, and like 2 minutes later, he was like in Perry, and I was like, dude, are you teleporting? Like, what is going on here?
Yep, he certainly has a love for life.
He has like that Michael Myers effect. He just appears.
Yeah, I wish I had that kind of energy.
Oh man, and that's the type of energy, that's the type of passion that we need to like kind of like promote. And it's not just for kids. It's not through K12. We don't want to compartmentalize it here at this project. It's everyone. If you're 50, 60, 40, who cares? Take a passion. And not to be bleak, it's going to go night-night sometime, and you want to live every day, passionately and create something every day. That's the goal here, is to inspire that. So,
no reason to keep waiting. All those fears that you have inside you, don't let them take over. Once you make the first step, that's always the toughest. So just make sure you keep moving forward. If you want something, go get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, momentum is huge. Starting is huge, and ultimately, it's perhaps crass to say this on a closing moment, but they say procrastination is like masturbation. you just end up fucking yourself in at the end. So, for anybody out there, students, adults, parents, kids, if you're listening to this and you made it this far, thank you. Episode 5 in the books. Longtime friend Doug Wickert, thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure to be out here.
It's been a pleasure. We'll have to sketch this out and kind of get some more episodes going. And anybody out there listening, thank you. Again, please, if you made it this far, you've stumbled across this, we are learning as we go to how to get this out there to more ears and more bodies. We appreciate you listening. This project is solely soul-sourced. It's being brought to you by myself with resources that I have and fortunate to have and kind of just a desire to kind of create something for everybody. Please check out the website, www.staycurious.org. Drop us a line, DM us, find us on any of the social medias that you can. Just find us. It's one word, stay curious. You don't have to Google it too. If you put it together and make it a verb, you'll find us. So as long as you're living in the verb life, that'll be good for us, and you'll find us. We'll connect, and we will get back to you. A human will reach out. There is no automated responses here. So yeah, give us time. Participate, help build a brand, engage your brain, and until next time, we appreciate you listening, and again, stay curious. Ciao.